Have you ever wondered how Rome became the most powerful empire in ancient history? Everyone talks about the Roman legions and their emperors, but few know about the mysterious people who actually built the foundations of this colossal empire, the Etruscans. Rome didn't rise from nothing. Long before it, the Etruscans had already mastered architecture, politics, and even the religious rituals that the Romans would later adopt as their own. But if they were so powerful, why did they disappear? What really happened to this civilization? Today, we will uncover the forgotten truth about the Etruscans and reveal how they played a crucial role in Rome's rise to power. You'll be shocked to discover how much of what we call Roman culture actually came from them. So stay with us until the end, because this story might completely change the way you see the empire that ruled the ancient world. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of our videos filled with historical curiosities about ancient Rome. The mysterious origins of the Etruscans. Have you ever heard that even great historians disagree about the roots of this people? Get ready to see how the doubt surrounding the origin of the Etruscans created an aura of fascination and curiosity throughout the ancient world. The doubt lingers in the air. While Herodotus swore that the Etruscans came from Lydia to escape a great famine, Dionysius of Halicarnassus argued that this civilization was indigenous to the Italian peninsula, coexisting on Italian soil long before Rome gained strength. The very fact that there is no consensus shows how complex the Etruscan identity was. In his writings, Herodotus described the customs of this people with a tone of astonishment. The Etruscan culture seemed to have Mediterranean elements, but also aspects reminiscent of Eastern traditions. Discussing elaborate rituals filled with symbolism was part of his narratives, and he also pointed out similarities with peoples who lived in Asia Minor. On the other hand, Dionysius, being more pragmatic, preferred to focus on local evidence. According to him, the Etruscan language did not resemble anything that came from outside. This meant that the Etruscans had always been there. With these conflicting accounts, each new archaeological discovery added new chapters to history and generated more debates, turning the Etruscans into a true enigma for scholars. The rise of the Etruscan city-states. But how did such an enigmatic people manage to prosper to the point of becoming a powerhouse in the heart of Italy? Let's now discover how the Etruscan city-states flourished and organized themselves. Unlike Rome, which had its leadership concentrated in a single location, the Etruscans were structured as independent city-states. Tarquinii, Veii, and Clusium, for example, formed a network of prosperous urban centers, connected by a strong religious and cultural alliance. These cities were protected by sturdy walls and governed by local leaders who sometimes assumed the title of lucumo, a kind of magistrate or king, depending on the period. Even without a rigid central leadership, there was a degree of cooperation among them, reinforced by the Etruscan League, an alliance for defense matters and joint religious celebrations. The economy strengthened thanks to the richness in minerals and the Etruscans' skill in metallurgy. They mastered the production of weapons and utensils in iron and bronze, and their trade routes extended all the way to the Greek world, which brought wealth and allowed for intense cultural exchange. Have you ever wondered how this commercial and cultural growth shaped the destiny of an empire? Leave your like now, so that we can continue bringing you stories as impactful as this one. Religion and divination, the bond with the gods. Imagine living in a society where every thunderclap or bird's flight was interpreted as a divine message. Curious to know how this affected political and even military decisions? Let's dive into the spiritual world of the Etruscans. For the Etruscans, the sacred was everywhere. The reading of omens, whether through the liver of sacrificed animals, haruspice, or by observing the sky, celestial templum, was fundamental. No public work or military campaign would begin without priests confirming that the gods were satisfied. This reputation as readers of fate transcended generations and became known to the Romans. Livy recounts that, even with the decline of Etruscan power, the religious prestige of these priests remained intact. In Rome, a group of specialists called the haruspices was formed, official envoys to interpret divine signs, following the Etruscan tradition. The most interesting aspect is how these practices not only defined religious routines, but also influenced political pacts and military alliances. If the prediction was negative, entire strategic decisions could be postponed or altered, demonstrating the immense weight of religiosity in the conduct of state affairs. Tarquinius Priscus, the Etruscan king of Rome. What if I told you that in its formation, Rome had a king of Etruscan origin who forever changed the face of that humble city? It's time to meet Tarquinius Priscus. Tarquinius Priscus was one of the first kings of Rome, traditionally considered the fifth. Of Etruscan origin, his visionary outlook helped transform the ancient Roman village into a promising urban center. His public works, such as the construction of temples and improvements to the sewer system, were fundamental to local growth. Endowed with unique charisma, Tarquinius Priscus earned the respect of the Roman citizens. He implemented symbols of power that were distinctly Etruscan, such as the toga with a purple stripe used by magistrates, and brought with him a sophisticated understanding of engineering and urban planning. It is during this period that we see Rome beginning to absorb Etruscan culture more intensely, adopting some religious rites, artistic styles, and even influences in its mode of governance. By the end of his reign, Rome was no longer the same. Did you already know this part of Roman history? Write in the comments which detail caught your attention the most so far. The emergence of a conflict, Rome versus the Etruscans. Rome was flourishing, but that didn't mean the Etruscans would passively watch the growth of what not long ago was just a small village. Want to know how this tension turned into war? Let's find out. Over time, Rome began to strengthen militarily, especially after better structuring its own form of government. Meanwhile, the Etruscan cities remained wealthy yet independent of each other, making any unified response to a potential external threat difficult. A major flashpoint was the territorial dispute. Rome desired to expand its borders in the central region of the peninsula, while Etruscan cities, such as Veii, defended their domains. These differences turned into hostility, and peace became unsustainable. In this scenario, localized battles arose that little by little escalated into larger conflicts. Livy, in recounting these events, describes the strong Etruscan resistance and the Roman obstinacy in conquering every inch of land they believed was rightfully theirs. The siege of Veii, Marcus Furius Camillus in action. Can you imagine a 10-year war marked by sieges, ingenious strategies, and the presence of a general who would become almost legendary? Come discover how the siege of Veii unfolded. The city of Veii was one of the most powerful and wealthy in the Etruscan League, located just 16 kilometers from Rome. Its proximity made the confrontation inevitable. And there was Marcus Furius Camillus, the man who would come to be known as the Second, founder of Rome. Camillus led a siege that lasted about a decade, using tunnel excavation techniques to surprise the enemy. In the end, the Romans managed to breach Veii's defenses, capturing the city in 306 BC. It was an emblematic victory that gave Rome not only military power, but also prestige. For Livy, the triumph at Veii represented a paradigm shift. Rome was no longer a small power on the rise, but a force capable of shaking the structure of the Etruscan cities. At the same time, for the Etruscans, it became clear that their regional hegemony was hanging by a thread. If you're enjoying discovering the strategies behind these conflicts, leave your like now to support this kind of historical and epic content. The Gallic threat and Etruscan fragility. Did you think only Rome posed a danger? Well, the Gauls were coming to further disrupt the region and put not only the Romans, but also the already shaken Etruscan cities at risk. In 390 BC, the Gauls crossed the Alps and invaded the Italian peninsula, defeating Rome at the Battle of the Orlian River and even sacking the city itself. This episode shook the Romans' confidence, but it also brought immense difficulties for the Etruscans, who were not prepared to face this new enemy. Many Etruscan cities were plundered or forced to pay tributes. The Etruscan League, already weakened by internal conflicts and political disputes, became virtually ineffective in coordinating a unified defense against the Gauls. Interestingly, this widespread chaos also served as a temporary truce between the Romans and Etruscans, as both were concerned with surviving the Gallic incursions. However, after the sackings, Rome quickly reasserted itself, while the Etruscan cities did not have the same fortune. The Battle of Sentino and the end of resistance. What if all the hope of a people was concentrated in one decisive battle? That is exactly what happened at Sentino, where the fate of the Etruscans was sealed. Want to know the details of this epic fight? The Battle of Sentino occurred in 295 BC, involving Romans, Etruscans, and other Italic peoples such as the Senones and the Umbrians. It was the last major effort by the Etruscan cities to stem the expansion of Rome. Unfortunately for them, the defeat was overwhelming. Livy describes the atmosphere of despair among the Etruscan troops, who were fighting not only for honor, but for their very cultural survival. With the failure at Sentino, the Etruscan League practically dissolved, and the cities were forced to sign treaties of submission to Rome. This final defeat marked the definitive turning point of power on the Italian peninsula. Rome became increasingly solid, while the Etruscans resigned themselves to the status of subordinate allies, or, in many cases, simply disappeared as independent entities. Did you already know the outcome of this decisive battle? Share this video with a friend who loves history so that more people can discover these surprising twists. Cultural assimilation and the loss of the Etruscan language. Did this entire process of conquest mean the complete end of Etruscan customs? Now we will see how fundamental aspects were incorporated by Rome, while others were lost forever. The Etruscan language, having no affinity with Latin, was one of the first victims of Roman domination. With the local elite increasingly oriented toward the power of Rome, Latin spread rapidly. In just a few generations, the Etruscan language became increasingly rare, surviving only in religious and familial circles. On the other hand, the material culture of the Etruscans was greatly exploited. Construction techniques, such as the use of the arch and the vault, were assimilated and improved upon by Roman engineers. Great works, such as the Cloaca Maxima in Rome, benefited from the Etruscan expertise in drainage. Religion also remained partly alive, especially in the realm of divination. Etruscan haruspices were integrated into the Roman religious system, and the rituals of reading omens continued to be valued. Thus, even though politically absorbed, the Etruscan heritage did not completely disappear. Immortal legacy. What Rome inherited from the Etruscans. Now that you know the highs and lows of this mysterious people, how about discovering which Etruscan elements we can still identify in our modern society? To begin with, many symbols of power in Rome came directly from the Etruscans. The famous toga, especially the praetexta version with a purple stripe, was used by Roman magistrates as a clear reference to the status of the Etruscan kings. The emphasis on monumental architecture, triumphal arches, bridges, and aqueducts has deep roots in the engineering knowledge that the Etruscans possessed. The very ritual of the Roman triumph, with its grand parades, bore similarities to Etruscan celebrations. In the end, the Etruscans may have lost their independence, but without them the grandeur of Rome might never have existed. From religious rites to engineering, they left an indelible mark that has spanned centuries and, in a way, continues with us to this day. The history of the Etruscans and their relationship with Rome is marked by paradoxes and strong emotions. On one hand, we see a people proud of their roots, with complex ancestral rites and cities rich in gold and culture. On the other, we face the reality of Roman expansion, which, despite subjugating the Etruscans militarily, absorbed much of their knowledge, preserving part of their soul in every monument, celebration, and custom. Thus, the legacy of the Etruscans remains alive. With every history book that is opened, with every piece of ancient pottery found in excavations, we reinforce just how much humanity owes to this mysterious and visionary people. If today we admire the wonders of Rome, much of it is due to the solid foundations established by the Etruscans. If you enjoyed this journey through time and want more fascinating stories, subscribe to our channel now, leave your like, and share this video with your friends. Let's spread knowledge and keep the memory of these incredible peoples alive. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video about ancient Rome and its empire.